Hello, parents. My video message is for you, and I have a simple question. Do you agree with giving children birth control? That's what this message is basically about. And I'm going to give you my personal feelings on this topic. Let me tell you, I personally don't think it's wise to give children or a child birth control, and I'm going to tell you why. But before I get to that, let me just tell you this. It is no secret to any of us that sex is always talked about. People are very comfortable talking about sex, and the world, society as a whole, it promotes sex and is constantly shoving sex or sexually explicit things in our faces. When we turn on the radio, we're hearing about sex. When we look at certain TV shows, when we look at certain movies, just everywhere we are hearing about sex. And many of us as parents, we have children that are under the age of 18. And some parents believe that you should give your child birth control. And the reason why they believe you should give your child birth control is because they feel like you should be safe than sorry. Your children, when they are not around you, they conduct themselves a little bit differently than they do when they are in our presence. And I also know that a lot of parents, because when you were a teenager, you may have been promiscuous, you may have been sexually active, you impose sometimes your insecurities and your fears on your children. And you feel like, well, I had sex, I did certain things, so who am I to believe that my children won't? I know that that's not everybody's story, but sometimes that is what parents have in mind as far as them agreeing to giving children birth control. But here's a little bit of a different perspective as to why it can become dangerous and why I don't feel it's wise. The first thing is you have to think about your child's mental and emotional makeup. You know that once you become sexually active, a lot of thoughts, feelings, and emotions come behind that. And sometimes when your child has sex, they may not be able to deal with the things that comes behind that. For instance, some of you all may remember when you got your virginity taken. And once you got your virginity taken, you probably were not initially jealous, but jealousy came up after you started having sex. And if you saw that girl talking to another guy, you were insecure about that, you were jealous about that, you became angry. And ladies, if you lost your virginity or you began to have sex, you became possessive of that guy, you became jealous, and you were insecure if he talked to girls outside of you. So with that being said, we understand that if children go out here and they have sex, these are some of the things that they would have to deal with as far as their feelings, as far as jealousy, as far as control. And we also know that a lot of times when somebody loses their virginity, their relationship more than likely will not last. Some people have started having sex, and a person who took their virginity, they stayed with them for a little while, but eventually as time went on, they moved on and they got with somebody else. I want you guys to also think about the reputations of your children. If you have underage children, they're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, the reality is this: there are children that are those ages and they have horrible reputations. There are young ladies right now they have reputations for being whores. There are a lot of young men, their name is on the mouth of several different young men or men. And your child, your daughter or your daughters, they are known to be whores. They are known in the neighborhood or in the school or in the church as sucking guys off. I hate to break it to you that way, but that is just the reality of the situation. This does not go on with everyone, but this is going on with some underage children. Because you have to think about the fact that when your child goes out and they get exposed to sex, you don't know what is going to be ignited in that child. And who's to say that if you condone your child having sex, that they would only want to sleep with one person? They may enjoy it so much and have have an attraction to several other people, and they go out and start sleeping with 3 or 4 other people. Stuff like this happens all the time, but people don't want to talk about it. Another thing that I found out, when you are condoning and promoting giving your children birth control, what you have to think about is the fact that they could come home pregnant. And what does a lot of parents do? If your child comes home pregnant, mothers have taken their daughters to get abortions. So my thing is this: if you were okay giving your daughter birth control, or you were okay with passing your daughter or your son condoms, once they came home and they told you, Mom, Dad, I have a baby on the way, or Mom, I'm pregnant, why would some of you have resorted to taking your daughter to the doctor or an abortion clinic to kill their child, which is also your flesh and blood? Can I just be honest with you? That baby that's in your son or daughter, or I'm sorry, the baby that's in your daughter is your flesh and blood. Or if your son got a girl pregnant, that is still your flesh and blood. And so why be double-minded? If you are okay with passing birth control to your children and you're saying, hey, I'd rather be safe than sorry, then how come you become ashamed? How come you get embarrassed? How come you want to hide the fact that they came home and they told you they have a baby on the way? Some of you all will feel like, hey, if my son or daughter comes home pregnant or they have a child on the way, the reason why I would tell them to get an abortion is because of what? They're too young. That is the exact point of this video message. If you have an underage child, why are you okay with basically giving them a license to screw? Can I tell you a little bit about myself? When I was in high school, I was a virgin, and there were a few kids that were not that nice, and they made jokes about me not being sexually active, and the pressure had become overwhelming for me. So one day I went to my mother and I just asked her a question. I said, Mom, people are talking about me. They're talking about me being a virgin. Don't you think that you should probably give me birth control? I feel like I might be ready. Or just to be safe, would you give me birth control? And my mother snapped and she told me absolutely not. When I asked my mother why she would not give me birth control, she said, because I am not going to give you a license to screw. She actually said the F word, but I'm not going to say that here. But she said, I'm not going to give you a license to screw, because if I put you on birth control, that's basically saying I'm okay with you having sex or sleeping around. And as I got older, I admired my mother for that. I admired and respected the fact that my mother taught me to have morals and standards. And so on this video message, I want each and every one of you parents, whether you have a husband or a wife, or whether you are a single parent, especially for my single parents, and especially the parents that are in the body of Christ, I want you to look at this in a different angle. Before you get angry and before you get defensive, I want you to just think about everything that comes behind you allowing your child to go out here and have sex. Now, the reality is this: our children, no matter what we train them and teach them to do or not to do, when they are not in our presence, they are going to conduct themselves differently. It's peer pressure on them. They're hanging around different people. They're hearing different things. They're seeing different things. And we know that children are going to blaze their own trails. But my thing is, if your son or daughter has a reputation for being promiscuous, or they have a reputation for being easy, it's not a challenge to get your daughter on her back. It's not a challenge to get your son to run up in some random girl. Why is it that we are okay and comfortable saying, here, son, I'm going to give you some condoms? Many fathers, it's a badge of honor to go to their sons and give them condoms. Some of them think it's funny. They think it's cute to talk to their son about sex or screwing different girls. Some women, they are caught up and they live vicariously through their daughters. They look at how they're attractive. They look at their bodies and they talk to them and they think it's funny and cute to tell their daughter, oh, she has a boyfriend. How does your daughter have a boyfriend, or how's your son in a relationship and they are 14, 15, 16 years old? My thing is this. All we can do is teach our children about morals, about standards, tell them that their reputations can get damaged. And we need to tell our children, instead of promoting sex and passing out condoms and birth control, how about we tell our children to try to wait until they are married to have sex? Because we know that feelings and thoughts and emotions and sometimes unwanted drama and trouble can come behind making a decision to have sex at a young age, because a young mind and the emotions of a young person are not under wraps and they don't know how to control it. Why are we not promoting celibacy? Why are we not promoting that? When my mother told me I'm not going to give you a license to screw, I was 19 years old when I lost my virginity, and I wound up getting married to the man that took it a year later, and I stayed married for 10 years. That's not to brag. That's not to boast. But even though I did not wait until marriage, I was raised by my mother and father, and they stayed on top of me and told me. I was brought up in the church. They told me to wait until I was married to have sex, but I chose to go otherwise. And I believe as parents, just because you had a certain experience as a teenager, I think it's unfair to impose it on your children. Stop being insecure. Stop being afraid, thinking that your children will be the way that you were. And honestly, speak for yourself, because all parents, when we were teenagers, we were not promiscuous. We were not sleeping around. We didn't have bad reputations. So what I'm saying to you guys in this video message, talk to your children. Yes, you are supposed to trust your children, but you have to be realistic. And especially those of you that's in the body of Christ. Can I just say something to you for a minute? We can love God and worship God. We can go to church, speak in tongues, dance, and fall out. We can shout to the mountaintop and say the devil is a liar. But that still does not mean that your children are untouchable. It does not mean that your children are untouchable. Let me tell you something, how the enemy works. If you have bad kids and your kids are already 14, 15, 16 years old having sex, or they drinking and they smoking and they going to jail and they defy authority and they cussing people out and they cussing you out and going upside your head, the devil's not going to really bother them. But the good kids, the ones that we are praying for, the ones that we are going before God, laying on our faces, crying about, those are the ones that the enemy will come and try to attack. So we as parents need to stop being comfortable and stop conforming to the world's and society's standards as far as passing birth control and condoms to our children. We need to stop telling our children that it's cute to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend and they're 14, 15, and 16 years old, when they really should be focusing on school and going to college. Once your kids go off to college and they're grown, all we can do is hope and pray that once they go away, that they believe what we told them about sex and having a good reputation and morals and standards. And we would only hope that they have taken into consideration what we taught them. But once your children leave your home and they turn 18 or they turn 21 and they move out from under your roof, you are no longer in control of how they conduct themselves. So in this video message, what I'm saying to you is I'm addressing underage children. Children that are under the age of 18. For you to promote them having sex and passing them birth control, to me, in my personal opinion, you are wrong. You are wrong and you are playing a dangerous game. And I know what some of you parents will say, well, I trust my child. My child is an honor roll student. They get A's and they get B's. So what does that mean? That your daughter or your son, because they get straight A's and B's, that they won't be promiscuous or they won't be immoral and sleep around? When I was in high school, I knew several children that had sex and they were straight A students. They were smart enough, let me tell you, they were intelligent enough to do their schoolwork, do their homework, come to school every day, but they slept around with 2 or 3 different people. They snuck off and got abortions. So what does that mean? It's no different from talking about a preacher kids or cop kids. Sometimes preacher and cop kids are the worst kids you will come across. Can I just be honest? And this is not to take a stab at law enforcement or the men and women of God in position. But I'm just being honest. If your children, if you are a pastor or a minister or a bishop or an apostle, you are a police officer, if your children don't care about your position and what your title is, what will make parents think that it's any different if their children are straight A students? It doesn't matter. Sex is sex. And you can't get so comfortable believing that because your child gets good grades, that they won't make certain decisions to do certain things. That's what my entire video message is about. Parents, care about your children's reputation. Care about their feelings. Care about this unwanted drama. There are some kids out here right now. You all have children right now that have 2 or 3 different baby daddies. Or 2 or 3 different baby mothers. And it came because you started off when they were young, giving them birth control and condoms. But my thing is, like I said earlier, and I'm going to say it again. If you pass birth control and condoms to your children, when they come home and they are pregnant or they tell you they have a baby on the way, stop promoting and telling them to go get an abortion. Why hide it? God forbid my son and daughter come home and they say that they expecting a child. They're going to keep that child. They are going to keep that child. And they're going to wake up at 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning to take care of that baby. I will under no circumstances hide the fact that my children made a wrong decision. That's what my video message is, people. I hope you guys don't get angry and defensive about it. If you do, I really don't care. I make no apologies about making this video. I had to make the video because this is a very serious subject. And this is something serious that goes on every day, but it's really not talked about. And I'm sorry, I definitely wanted to target the body of Christ. Those of you that's in the house of God and you do this. And single parents. You guys know I love you.